Hi, my name is Abby McKee, and I conducted my research in effective reading instruction for students with disabilities. Before I get into my research, I want to kind of give some background for why I chose this research topic. So, I'm looking at my own experiences as a special education teacher um, in fourth grade specifically on how I can strengthen my own reading instruction and what I was noticing in kids that were coming up from third grade to fourth grade and then transitioning into that upper grade level. Also, I wanted to do some research because reading is a lifelong skill, and I want to help students be able to strengthen that skill to further themselves throughout their whole schooling and then even into adulthood. The last thing that I grounded my research in for background is that switch from learning to read and reading to learn is difficult for students with disabilities. What I mean here is those first foundational years in kindergarten and first grade, students are learning to read. So they're just reading books, they're getting through levels just to get exposure to vocabulary and um, word and word strategies and phonics and everything like that. But then when they come up into those upper grade levels, they're reading to learn, to gain information, to gain insight on a topic. But for students with disabilities, who are still working on those foundational skills, that increase in rigor can be challenging for them to keep up with their peers. So, this kind of leads into my area of concerns. The first one that I noticed was I read a study that took place in 2016 that on average, only 36% of students were on grade level for reading in the fourth grade. This really stuck out to me since I am in fourth grade with fourth graders and teaching them. I really wanted to focus in on that to see what percentage of students with disabilities are even further behind the kids that are, close to grade level or almost on grade level. The other thing I wanted to dig into is the method of teaching. In a study in 2017 by Hughes, teachers were using ineffective ways to teach students with disabilities. So I wanted to look into what those ineffective ways and how can I share to for educators to switch their teaching to help with reading instruction and even reading instruction in other content areas. So my three themes in my research were the first one was direct versus explicit instruction. This has kind of been a debate, I feel like, and I feel like when I was in my bachelor degree program, those words were used interchangeable. But in my research, I found out that those words mean two completely separate styles of instruction. So I kind of wanted to clear that debate up and give people some more insight about direct and explicit instruction. The second theme that I chose to focus on was effective reading instruction. So, what can general education teachers use, or what can special education teachers use in our case, to help that educational gap close instead of widen it within that reading? Then the last area that I chose to focus on was cross curricular connections. So, reading, like I said earlier, is a lifelong skill. So, I wanted to figure out how I could support myself and other educators in reading across across grade levels, across content areas like in math and writing and science and social studies, any of those areas. So as I go into my first key takeaways, I will start with direct instruction versus explicit instruction. The three big things that I found were the first one was explicit instruction solely focuses on the how to teach a given skill. This focuses on how is the student going to learn the skill I'm presenting them? Or how can I help the student focus on reading to strengthen their knowledge? Instead of direct instruction is focusing on the what to teach and how to teach it. We're looking at just solely how can I support my student, and it helps teachers have more time with students, I found. The second bullet point here is that the most compelling research had students could benefit from effective explicit instruction, both cognitively and behaviorally. For example, for cognitively, it helps them by having models like sound boxes or, stretching out words like a visual model in front of them while they're reading, that it helps them process while they're reading. And then behaviorally, due to teachers having more time to focus as a student as a whole, the decrease in behavior was very surprising, that they were able to respond to the students in time. For my next key takeaways for effective reading instruction in the upper grade levels, so this qualified as fourth grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade in this study in 2016. So in the upper grade level classrooms today, only 36% of fourth graders are reading at a proficient level. This is all fourth graders, including students with disabilities. So there's a small percentage of all students reading at grade level by the time they're in fourth grade. So that was kind of the drive of, okay, what are we doing in our instruction that we need to strengthen so we can get more students on grade level? And then there are 5 key factors that you should focus on in reading. 1 is word recognition, fluency, vocabulary, multi-component, so kind of combining those first 3 all together, and then comprehension. This study suggested that teachers need to focus on these, like the fluency, the vocabulary, the word recognition, even in the upper grade levels. Just because they were taught the syllables or taught beginning sounds, ending sounds, suffixes, rhyming words, does not mean they have mastered them. We need to continue to strengthen those skills as they progress through text levels. The last part on my effective reading instruction was a way to help students with reading comprehension is to increase their exposure to text. So like I said, related to the second bullet point, is we need to continue to move them through the text so they can do hard things, but it's how we support them. So giving them more support by reading with them or modeling how to read a sentence gives them that more exposure to the higher vocabulary level. My third key findings and takeaways from comprehension across content areas was, the first one was, comprehension is a big part of reading for students to learn in the upper grade levels in all areas. So for like in math, students are expected to read word problems, but if they can't comprehend what the word problem is asking, they can't ever get to that math part. Or in science and social studies, they are expected to read and understand certain contents about an experiment or a person. But if they can't even get to the reading process, they can never cross the bridge to understanding the content that they're supposed to be given. The second bullet point talks about the use of visuals for students to organize their thinking and write out what they're understanding as they're reading. So finding ways to use a graphic organizer in science, or finding ways to use a math graphic organizer on how they can organize their numbers and pick out those vocabulary words they need to have. My last bullet point kind of goes off of the second one. So providing this type of instruction, it can increase their comprehension skills and help them slow down to processing the given information. So having them self-monitor themselves by filling out a graphic organizer or finding certain vocabulary words in a math word problem, it helps them process and gives them just a little bit more time to understand and read and comprehend what they're asked to do in those direct content areas. So I've also included an implementation plan for all of you educators out there. For reading instructions, focus on the visuals for organizing. Organizers that students can use in reading, writing, math, social studies, science, all those content areas that helped with their thinking. Summarizing, having students stop and be like, what did I just read in this math problem? What did I just read on this map for social studies? And teaching them those self-monitoring skills, and then even self-questioning, having them ask themselves, did I understand what was being told or what was being asked of me? So then I also included some teaching strategies for the educators themselves. So modeling examples, showing students how to read fluently on a page or break apart a word is still acceptable in those upper grade levels. Frequent feedback for students can decrease the behavior. So by allowing them to make a mistake and then giving them feedback right away on how they can enhance or change their thinking is so helpful. And then response time to students. When students are asked to do a task and you're reading with them or you're having them write about their reading, get their feedback to them at a timely manner so they can actually understand and fix their mistake if they need to. And then I will leave you with some action research questions that I use throughout my research. So, what are the causes for students' academic achievement gaps in reading? How can my students benefit from explicit instruction? And how can teaching comprehension strategies across the curriculums impact students with disabilities? And here are my references. Thank you.